In this video, I want to share how the Dave Ramsey baby steps work and how I've modified some of these baby steps in our approach to pay off multiple six figures of student loan debt. Hey, welcome to the channel. If we haven't met before, I'm Tim Fraticelli, and after graduating college, I worked in finance for 5 years before I decided to add $100,000 in student loans to become a physical therapist. Now, you may or may not have nearly as much student loan debt as that, but if you do have six figures of student loan debt, you might be wondering if the Dave Ramsey baby steps are right for you. And by the end of this video, you'll know the 7 baby steps, and I'll share the small modifications that I've made to the 7 baby steps to see how we plan to knock out these 6 figures of student loan debt in the next couple of years. But first, let's understand the basics of what Dave Ramsey teaches in his 7 baby steps. The first baby step is to save $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. Now, Dave Ramsey tells you to do this as fast as you can, and I would have to agree with him here because over 40% of Americans struggle just to even come up with $400 to cover an unexpected expense. And if you're thinking, well, yeah, that'd be great to have an extra $1,000 sitting around, but I could hardly just make my minimum debt payments. Well, that's the whole point of somehow setting aside $1,000, because life will happen and you will have emergencies that are just unexpected, like urgent care visits or car repairs, or like having to pay for your fridge repair like we just did last week. And ideally, once you get a budget going, you'll be able to plan for these types of expenses. But that first baby step is just to save $1,000 in a starter emergency fund. Okay, baby step number 2 is to pay off all of your debt except for your house using the debt snowball method. Yes, that's right. If you follow the baby steps to a T, you won't even see steps 3 through 7 until you've paid down all of your debt minus your home. And for people who have 6 figures of student loan debt or more in student loans, this might seem a little bit overwhelming. So stay tuned, because I'll share how we approach the 7 baby steps with well over 6 figures in student loan debt. Now, if you haven't heard of the debt snowball method to pay down your debts, it's really pretty simple. You start out by listing all your debts in order from lowest to highest in terms of the entire amount, not the interest rate, just the amount of the loan. And using any extra money that you can make or save in the month, you apply it towards that smallest loan balance. And eventually you'll pay off that smallest loan, and then you can apply that entire payment that you were once paying, that amount that freed up, towards the second smallest loan. And as you continue to make those regular payments on your other debts, you begin to see those debts and payments erased from the list, and you experience these little wins that really do help motivate you to pay down your other debts. So I really do like the approach. I like the psychology behind it. It's motivating, and I think the debt snowball is really a great way to tackle student loan debts as well. Okay, baby step number 3 is to save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Now, if you remember, baby step number 1 is to save $1,000. Baby step number 2 is to pay off all of your student loans. And baby step 3, we build that emergency fund to equal 3 to 6 months of your expenses, which may be anywhere from $7,000 to $20,000 or more, depending on your average monthly expenses and whether or not you or your partner have both steady jobs. And similar to that initial $1,000 emergency fund, your 3 to 6 month emergency fund should be in cash, like a cash account, like a high yield savings account or a CD that earns interest, but it doesn't have high risk exposure like money invested in the stock market. Speaking of investing and moving right along, baby step number 4 is to invest 15% of your household income toward your retirement savings. Now, this is where Dave and I differ in priorities, because he would recommend that you pay off all of your debt first, then save 6 months of emergency fund, and then start investing into your 401k or Roth IRA. But there are just a lot of people out there with a ton of student loan debt. And if you follow the 7 baby steps exactly as Dave prescribes, you might lose out on things like your employer match, or even tax benefits related to contributing to a retirement plan during your early years of lower income. So this is one of the areas where we've modified in our baby step approach. Okay, in the next minute, I'm going to quickly cover baby steps 5, 6, and 7 before I share exactly how we've modified the 7 baby steps in our journey to pay off 6 figures of student loans. So let's dive right into those. Steps 5, 6, and 7. Baby step number 5 is to save for your children's college fund. I agree with Dave here, as he recommends that you only start saving for your kids' college once you have a solid savings plan established for your own retirement. And that's because, after all, you can't borrow for your retirement, but your children, they can use grants and scholarships, and then you can even use student loans to cover their education expenses. But since you're debt-free at this point, baby step number 5 is to set aside money for your kids' college. Now, baby step number 6 is to pay off your home early. If you follow the previous baby steps, your home is the last debt that you have between you and complete debt freedom, which would be an amazing feeling not to owe anyone anything. And it may also free up cash flow for other investments or business opportunities. But on the flip side of this baby step, you will have people who argue with Dave Ramsey saying it's okay to have a home mortgage with these super low interest rates right now, especially if you have other opportunities to invest and to earn higher returns for your money. But regardless, if you made it this far to baby step number 6, you're doing pretty well. And with baby step number 7, it's the final baby step. It's to build wealth and to give. Now, the idea here is to continue building your wealth, but also to be generous in helping others by giving to causes that you believe in, which I think is great. Now, I mentioned that we have a slightly different approach to following these 7 baby steps to tackle our multiple 6 figures of student loans. And while it may be something that works for us, it may not be something that works for everyone. So the changes that we've made to the baby steps is to move up steps 3, 4, and 7. Now, we're not ignoring baby steps 1 or 2. Actually, baby step 1 has been done for a long time, and that's part of the reason why we moved up baby step 3, which is to save 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. And that's because when you have 6 figures of student loan debt, there's a good chance that your student loan payments will be at least $500 to $1,000 each month or more. And personally, we didn't feel comfortable having just $1,000 in an emergency fund because that would barely cover 1 month's student loan payment. And for us to having at least 3 months of total expenses in our emergency savings account gave us a huge feeling of security as we shifted our focus on paying down chunks of student loans by the thousands. And yes, some people might argue that it's really foolish to keep $7,000 to $10,000 in a savings account, but I'm going to tell you that early on, it was a huge relief to have that available so we could feel like we could cover any major repairs to our home or to our car or to whatever, and then to focus our energy on making extra payments onto our student loans. The second major change we made was to move up baby step number 4, which is investing for your retirement. And I'm not recommending that you follow our lead here. And to be honest, we're not setting aside the 15% of our income right now that Dave Ramsey recommends, but we're simply contributing to our retirement accounts to get the employer match because it's free money on the table. And I also think it's important to get into the habit of saving, regardless of the amount that you're contributing to your retirement. That discipline of savings and also paying down your student loan debt really just encourages overall good money habits. And since I feel that personal finance is 80% behavior, it's important to really establish this habit early on, even though it doesn't really follow the 7 baby steps exactly. It's a good habit to get into. And the final change we made to the baby steps is to incorporate baby step number 7 right now, which is to continue to give and to be generous. Now, Dave Ramsey, as a Christian himself, he would support the idea of Christians tithing, even when they have debt to pay down. But I think the bigger picture here is to simply practice being generous, regardless of your financial circumstances or your baby steps, whichever one you happen to be on. And if you could be generous with a smaller amount of money when your budgets are tight and your income is low, I really feel like your attitude of generosity is going to continue as your income grows and you build wealth. If you haven't read the book Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, I'd highly recommend it. You can see a link to that book in the description. Not only does he go over these 7 baby steps in really good detail, he gives you inspirational stories from everyday people who are paying down a ton of debt, which is really encouraging and definitely motivating for you to pay down your debt even faster. So those are my thoughts. If you're curious on our plan to pay down multiple 6 figures of student loan debt, stick around and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.